5, and this is our final presentation for our semester-long research project. My name is Kenzie.
I'm Aspen.
I'm Lane.
I'm Alina.
I'm Nate.
We have an overview to explain what we'll be talking about with you guys today. We'll start with our introduction and our literature review. We'll go over our research question and our hypotheses. We'll share our survey and sample plans. We'll talk about our population demographics. And then we'll interpret our data and share our results, as well as our data analysis. We'll discuss any implications, and then we'll wrap up with a conclusion and ask any questions. So we have some statistics to start us off. 80% of students reported having poor mental health because of their financial situation, and 59% of college students considered dropping out. Even more data for you, the cost of attending college is on the rise. The cost of attending a four-year university has increased 36.7% from the years 2010 to 2023, which is a major jump in 13 years. And inflation has also affected rent prices. They have increased over 20% from the year 2000. Even more data, large amounts of students are faced with financial stress. Some numbers to back that up. 72% of students experience financial stress stemming from the inability to meet tuition costs. And 40% of full-time students are employed, and 60% of that same 40% of students are working 20 plus hours a week. So they know about their financial situation and they're doing everything in their power to try and fix it. And even the last piece of data for you to start off is financial stress affects quality of life. And some of these indicators, financial stress has been proven to be associated with anxiety and depression. And financial stress also leads to difficulty concentrating on academic tasks and lower grades. So with our research out of the way, we decided on the question, does financial stress have an impact on a student's academic performance? To define financial stress for you, it is a condition that is the result of financial and or economic events that create anxiety, worry, a sense of scarcity, and is accompanied by a physiological stress response. So, why this research is relevant and why we felt so passionately about it, financial stress is a growing concern. Tariffs and things like that are going to increase the cost of living, rent prices will increase, tuition is not going to be going down. This means we're going to see a rise in financial stress in students. This means their mental health will take a decline, time management skills will be affected, and their overall well-being is going to be poor. So findings from our study can help find a solution to this growing problem.
Next up, we have our two hypotheses. The first one, we think that as financial stress levels increase, students' GPAs should decrease. This is just because if someone is more stressed about their finances, they will probably have some kind of job that is going to take time away from studying and doing homework, so they'll just have less time for that. Our second hypothesis is that as students have more access to financial resources, their financial stress will decrease because, like I said with the other one, if you have more money, then you won't have to worry about working as much, so you'll have more time for school. Next up, we have our two variables. The dependent variable is academic performance. This is based on GPA. And then our independent variable is financial stress.
Getting into our research objectives, we have 3 of them for this study. With the first one, we wanted to determine the percent of college students whose financial stress has affected their GPA. So with that, just helping us quantify how big this issue is. Our second one, we wanted to identify the top factors affecting financial stress levels among college students. So just understanding the specific causes a little bit more deeply and just pinpointing those specifics with that. And then our last one, we wanted to determine the percentage of college students who seek additional financial aid or resources. So just showing us if there's a need for financial help from decision makers or universities and whatnot.
So for our survey design, we began with a participant disclosure statement, just outlining the intention of the survey, assuring their anonymity, any associated risks, benefits, and our researcher contact information in case they need to get a hold of us for any reason. And then went into 4 questions concerning demographics, 1 multiple choice, the rest being yes or no. They were then asked about financial circumstances and mental disposition. Took about 16 questions ranging from yes or no, Likert scale, and multiple choice. And then for our sample plan, target audience was college students or ex-college students between 18 and 25. We're hoping to reach about 300. We ended up reaching about 150. Of that, we were only able to use a certain percentage. We distributed it with QR codes, social media, word of mouth, and just like mall gradings, you can come up, ask them to take it. And then to minimize error, we used a fail-safe question. One of the responses to the question, what are the symptoms of financial stress that you feel, was back pain. So if they clicked back pain, you kind of knew that it wasn't like, viable. They were just going through clicking the first one over and over.
Next up, we have our population and demographics. Like Lane just mentioned earlier, while our goal was 300, we did not get anywhere near 300. We had 219 responses. They were not all usable though, so after cleaning the data, we had 145 participant responses that we could use. Some of our demographics, we had a very large percent that were current college students, 90%. 83% were between 18 and 25, 93% were white, and then a very small portion of the rest of that were either Asian, Black, or Native American.
So for our analysis, we use the descriptives. Question 10, do you feel that financial stress has been detrimental to GPA? That would be the pie chart to the right of that. The majority of respondents answered maybe or probably not. And then question 16, have financial concerns ever caused you to consider transferring schools, consider dropping out, or neglect academic work? And the majority of respondents answered neglect academic work. And then for our independent t-test, we were able to use question 8. Do you believe your college did/does provide adequate financial aid? And half of respondents said yes, half said no. And then for the GPA, 80% of respondents were between 3 and 3.99. So as you can see, 1s are going to be our yeses, 2s are going to be our nos. There's no great significance in this t-test. And our only one that had any significance was question 6 and question 12. In the regression, does your financial situation cause you stress? As you can see, that's the pie chart to the right, question 6. The majority of respondents about half the time or frequently. And then question 13, how do you rate your overall financial situation? This one had no significance, but as you can see, the majority of respondents said average. And then question 11, this one was all over the board, so there wasn't really a good way to put it on there for graph-wise.
Getting into our results, like Lane said, so out of all of the regression analyses in the t-test that we ran through, this specific regression analysis was the only valid test that we ran in SPSS with an acceptable significance level. And so with that, we just wanted to use simple regression to compare questions 6 and 12 in our survey. Does your financial situation cause you stress? And what is your current GPA? And when we ran that, we found an R-squared value of 0.110. So even though the significance level is where we want it to be with our research, that's a very weak correlation, so we can't draw any conclusions between a direct correlation for these two variables. And like Kenzie was saying earlier in our literature review, there are some studies that do show a strong correlation between these two. But if we're specifically speaking for this study, our respondents had a pretty weak correlation overall with that.
Alright, so some implications that could have possibly made this go better or get the results that we wanted. We had a fairly shortened survey timeline, right around 2 weeks. If we were to make that longer, we could have seen more correlation. Lack of mental health awareness was a big one that came up. You never know who's responding and how they might be doing mentally or what they're going through, family-wise or otherwise. Stigmatism towards financial stress. Some people may feel like they shouldn't be admitting, even over an anonymous survey, that they're experiencing financial stress or they need financial resources. Also, the course load and course difficulty. Nobody really knows through our survey how many classes they're taking or the difficulty of classes and things like that. Also, additional family resources. We didn't ask any questions about if they were receiving financial help from family, friends, or other outlets of that nature. Also, delayed graduation. If people were to switch majors, that's most likely going to add years or semesters onto their student loans, which could increase their loans, which would increase their financial stress overall. So to make these better, we would focus on trying to get a larger sample population. That could include reaching out to other schools more heavily. We primarily focused on northern. Diverse demographics. I think 93% of our respondents were white, so if we could figure out a way to try to diversify that, that could prove to be beneficial. longer study collection time, that would be like over the course of a year, 2 years, or even longer. More specific answers to survey questions, which could include things like asking about mental health, asking about if they're receiving financials from family and friends. So for future studies, we would determine a baseline GPA to see if it goes up or down from their financial stress. And then also asking more questions, as noted before, about financial stresses and things like that, like mental health, course load, and family resources. So our first hypothesis was as financial stress levels increase, a student's GPA would decrease. While it was significant, as Aspen mentioned, we didn't find a strong correlation to draw any full conclusions off of that. We would hope that over a longer survey, reaching out to more people, we would be able to find a strong correlation. The answers did line up, and it looked like there would be, but the numbers said otherwise. Also, access to financial resources would decrease financial stress. We weren't really able to find any correlation in that through our survey, but it seems like that would make sense. So possibly over a longer timeline, and getting more respondents, we'd be able to find a correlation in that. And that is all.